Millennials, meanwhile, hitting the brakes on auto purchases, apparently. I'll speak with a Ford executive and an expert on buyer behavior about why cars have less mojo among today's 20-something generation. Welcome back. Well, a growing number of 20-somethings are now entering the workforce and have disposable income, but they're not spending any of it. More specifically, these millennials are not buying cars. Ford pulling together a panel of experts today to dig deeper into this market disruptor, the me generation. With us now to talk more about it, two of those panelists. Cheryl Connolly is manager of global trends and futuring at Ford Motor Company. Jason Dorsey is the Gen Y guy of the Center for Generational Kinetics. Good to see you both. Thanks so much for joining us. So talk to us about this panel. Millennials, are they really anti-consumers? They don't want to spend money? What are you seeing?
I don't think they're anti-consumers. You know, if you look at their hallmark, one of the things is they've grown up during a period of economic prosperity, but once they came of age, they kind of released into the recession, and so they're cautious, you know, and so they have an appetite for consuming, but they're doing it differently. Some of it is through rentals, some of it is just about access over ownership. We see some dramatic shifts.
There's a big difference that we're studying, which is millennials have been buying lots of stuff, but it's smaller purchases. So you got to put it all together. What we're seeing just starting to happen are the bigger purchases, and that's where you get, I think, just this myth that we don't like cars.
Yeah.
And it's not true. We just haven't bought them yet.
So how has the generation spending habits then changed the auto industry? Do you think it has?
So from an automotive standpoint, we can look at the societal changes. The Department of Transportation said that in 2008, 70% of 16-year-olds didn't have their license. And that number is down dramatically from the 70s, 80s. And so young people aren't seeing it as this major milestone into adulthood. And so they're postponing it. Some of it is just because they're overscheduled. They have academic achievements, extracurricular pursuits. But we also know that there are other factors, like this digital native idea that digital devices kind of give them an opportunity to collaborate and spend time, socialize, even when they're physically apart.
Yeah.
So we change our products, our marketing, our communications to try to address that.
Sure.
Yeah, and the big thing we're studying is this concept of delayed adulthood, which means that we're entering adulthood later, all the gateway markers, graduating college later, entering the workforce later, getting married later, having kids later. And when you look at when you buy things like a car, they tend to happen around those events, right? You're moving into those places. You need a car to get to that real job, or now you got a kid and you're toting them around. Those have all been pushed back, and that's what we're just now starting to see.
How come there's this delayed adulthood? What's the thinking?
Yeah, two things. One is parenting. We've got helicopter mom there, right? We're in college, and she's still showing up to help us with our papers, so you got that whole concept.
Right.
And then the recession, which really made it more difficult for us to enter the workforce on schedule. Put the two together, we're just now getting into that space.
So Cheryl, you're really creating a program, messaging to speak to this group.
Yeah, so we're trying to understand them from a deeper level, and we respond to these issues through product development. So the way that we design and engineer the vehicles are designed to support their lifestyle, their priorities. A lot of that's constant connectivity. So we let devices be brought into the vehicle, and they become hands-free, voice-activated, so you can still engage while keeping your hands on the wheel and your eyes on the road. But we also are changing the dialogue so that we're letting them co-create with us. We're asking them to give us suggestions about apps and things that they want to do when they're behind the wheel. As long as it's relative to the driving experience, you know, we'd love to hear what's on their mind and see if it can shape where we take the product.
What other industries do you think are important to this millennium group?
This millennial group right now? Well, we're seeing the biggest hit in retail because that's the first place we start to spend our money. But going further, we think financial services is one of the big ones we're going to start entering. Not only are we going to be making purchases like this that we've put off, but eventually we're going to start wading slowly into that market. Now the trick is, we're way more risk averse than any other generation our age. I mean, we are super risk averse because the stock market has been up since we've been adults. We have been making money. We got all this debt. And if you talk to a lot of millennials, the research that we do, it shows that they're like, oh, let's stick it in the bank. Investing is scary. And so that's when that's going to be kind of this next wave. We think you're going to see these adulthood purchases, and then we think financial services.
Financial services in what regard? In terms of, you know, credit cards, you know, debit cards, where?
We actually look at it in terms of investing. So right now there's a lot of millennials sitting on cash. It's a small amount of cash, but they're going to start to accumulate more. We're entering that wealth accumulation phase, which is why brands, frankly, are starting to pay attention to us. And it looks like in about 2017, we'll actually be able to outspend boomers for the first time, because we're going into that more is more space, building families and so forth, and they're going into a less is more space. So you can start to see that pinch on the market in that way.
Cheryl, why is this group so important to the industry?
Well, their sheer numbers. I mean, they're 80+ million of them, and they're actually larger in size than the baby boomer generation, which was extraordinary in creating kind of the middle classes as we know it in the marketplace that we have today. And they have a lot of spending power. But they're different. They're fundamentally different. They're pioneering new pathways for themselves. So the pathway used to be you go to college, you fall in love, you settle down, you get married, you have a kid, you know, you do those things. Now the order, there is no prescribed order. There is no guaranteed pathway to success, so it opens up a lot of doors for them. And in some ways, it's kind of liberating. You know, I can still be a contributing member of society, not have a mortgage, not settle down, not have a spouse, and still do things my way.
Very interesting. Where do they want to work?
Where do we want to work? Somewhere we feel valued, challenged, and included, which can be a stodgy old firm if they make it fun. What we won't do right now is accept a job that we think is beneath us, and that's something we're either going to have to get over, or it's going to follow us forever.
What do you mean you're above? What job are you above?
Oh, I don't think we're above any job. I started out buzzing tables, trust me, mowing yards. But a lot of the millennials we interview that get this kind of they're entitled and they're narcissistic and all this bad rap is because they won't take those entry-level jobs. What they miss out on is the idea that I need that experience, I need the network, I need to pay my dues and get started. Because if I enter the workforce 3 or 5 years later than my peers, it's really, really tough to catch up.
Good stuff. Thank you so much for your
you.
insights. Really appreciate it.